Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Statara Shri Śrīmad Krishna A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi, Haribol, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. So this is a reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 7, Text 11. We are just starting the narration of Mahārāja Bharata, how he became Jada Bharat, and a deer in between, like that. So the verse is written in prose, not in meter. So we're just going to read the word for word for this. Tasmin, in that ashram, Vavakila, indeed, Saha, Bharat Maharaj, Ekalaha, alone only, Pulaha-āśrama upavane, in the garden situated in Pulaha-āśrama. Vivida kusuma, kisalaya tulasika ambubihi, with varieties of flowers, twigs, and tulasī leaves, as well as with water. Yeah, right. You got that. Kandamula pula upaharihi. By offerings of roots, bulbs, and fruits. Cha, and. Sami hamanaha. Performing Bhagavata of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is Aradhanam, worshipping, Viviktaha, purified, Uparatta, being freed from, Vishaya Abhilasha, desire for material sense enjoyment, Upabhrutta, increased, Upashamaha, tranquility, Pranam, transcendental, Nivrittim, satisfaction, Vapa, he obtained. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the gardens of Pulaha-āśrama, Mahārāja Bharata lived alone and collected a variety of flowers, twigs, and tulasī leaves. He also collected the water of the Gaṇḍakī River, as well as various roots, fruits, and bulbs. With these he offered food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva, and worshipping him, he remained satisfied. In this way, his heart was completely uncontaminated, and he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. All material desires vanished. In this steady position, he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. Purport. Everyone is searching after peace of mind. This is obtainable only when one is completely freed from the desire for material sense gratification and is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yo Me Bhaktya Prayachati. Worship of the Supreme Lord, worship of the Lord is not at all expensive. One can offer the Lord a leaf, a flower, a little fruit, and some water. The Supreme Lord accepts these offerings when they are offered with love and devotion. In this way, one can become freed from material desires. As long as one maintains material desires, he cannot be happy. As soon as one engages in the devotional service of the Lord, the mind is purified of all desires. Then one becomes fully satisfied. Savai pum sam puro dharmo yatto bhaktir adhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati Vāsudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Suvairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. The supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. These are the instructions given in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the supreme Vedic literature. One may not be able to go to Pulaha-āśrama, but wherever one is, one can happily render devotional service to the Lord by adopting the processes mentioned above. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Charni Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashtita Deshatarane Vanchakalpatarubhisha Kripasnamivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hiri Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this verse, we have Bharat Maharaj. He's retired from his kingly duties, and he's gone to the forest, and he's living according to the life of a vanaprastha. So vanaprastha means someone who lives in the forest, and he performs austerities. So this stage is necessary for many people, not all people, but for more highly elevated persons like Kshatriyas, so forth, because the goal of life is to render, just as it's described here in this verse, Savai Pumsam Poro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhokshaja, is to render service to Adhokshaja. So Adhokshaja means, Adhokshaja, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one he's beyond the purview of the senses, yes? Yeah, he's beyond the purview of the senses. So how can you worship someone or something that you cannot see, with your blunt material senses? So this is, it's good enough, somehow or other, in the human form of life, the Supreme Lord has given the human body the ability to understand that such a person exists, that Hokshaja is someone who's, he's God, and that it is our duty to worship him. Shri Shri Radha Parthasarati Lalita Vishaka Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gornitai Ki Jai, Shri Sita Ram Lakshmana Hanuman Ki Jai. So the process is given here. Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yo Me Bhaktya Prayachati. So I'll make one observation about this. This is Krishna telling his friend and disciple Arjuna, and we are very fortunate in that this instruction was recorded and handed down to us. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viruhu. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say to people, they come to the temple, they see Krishna, and they say, oh, I've taken darshan, I've seen Krishna. I said, but have you also seen Maya? I said, if you've actually seen Krishna, then you should not also be seeing Maya, because you'll forget everything except the darshan of the Lord. So if you're also seeing Maya, that means you're not actually seeing Krishna. So so everybody executes bhakti according to his eligibility to execute bhakti. So this means that there's a question of adhikar. So in what particular level should you execute bhakti, and what rules, regulations you follow according to the desire of the Lord. So when one is in lower stages, because one's material senses are blunt and dull, one cannot directly see the Lord. Therefore he's called it hoksha. So Atashi Krishna namadi na bhavet grayam indriya sevan mukhe hi jivado swayameva spuratyada. So that because the material senses are blunt, one has to actually purify those senses simply by chanting and hearing the holy names of the Lord and engaging in his service. Then gradually, just as an iron bar is stuck in fire, then gradually the iron bar takes on the quality of the fire. Then one can perform devotional service. So a very important point here is everyone is searching after peace of mind, Prabhupada says in the purport. And he says this is obtainable only when one is completely freed from the desire for material sense gratification, is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So those of us who are not there yet, we're still working on that. This means, a sadhana or a sadhaka is defined by Rupa Goswami as one who is practicing he's called a candidate for liberation. He's not yet liberated, but he's a candidate for liberation because he knows that worship of the Supreme Personality of the Lord is good, and he knows that he should take up devotional service somehow or other. So this is the stage of what's called sadhana bhakti, when a sadhaka or a candidate for liberation, he takes up this process in earnest. Now, such a person, he's not necessarily motivated because he's not coming to the temple or associating with the devotees or doing service or chanting Hare Krishna because he has a taste for it. Ruchi is actually a stage that comes much later in the process of sadhana bhakti. But he's heard from the Shastras, and therefore the Shastras, this is the sufficient motivation for him. That and the association of the saintly persons. So, so here, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakti Prayachati. We've heard this from Bhagavad Gita. This is coming from the Shastras. So we may not be on that very high platform where we're just doing it out of love for Krishna, but we've heard, and therefore we're also doing it. So, worship of the Lord is not expensive. One can offer a leaf. The Supreme Lord accepts offering when they're offered with love and devotion. In this way, one can be freed from material desires. So usually in these classes, we often get these questions, that I'm starting bhakti yoga, I have material desires, I have this, I have that, how to be free from them. Our answer is be patient. Just keep executing the process. So we have here Vāsudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janayat Yasu Vairagam Jnanam Cha Yada Haitukam. So by rendering devotional service, causeless knowledge and detachment develops. So it's causeless. So what is it in this world that is causeless? That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's sarva karna karnam. If you're looking for what is the cause of this, what is the cause of this, you can always find there's a cause of this, cause of this. So when you finally find that cause that doesn't have any other cause, then that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this jnanam and this vairagyam, it is given personally and by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, was it Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Deepena Bhasvata, that I personally destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is coming personally from the Lord. So the so when one is in the lower stages of devotional service, it is very important that we follow the directions of the Lord as given in the Vedic literature. So, what is it? Krishna is very interesting when he's talking about, in the Bhagavad Gita, about divine and demonic natures. Okay? So this is a point on which we disagree with mainstream modern thinking as to what is nature. Mainstream secular society does not believe that there's any such thing as human nature, as a fixed human nature. That there are different theories about this, and it's a kind of like a mixture, it's like a kind of like mixture of different kinds of philosophies. But there are some prominent ideas out there. I don't know how prominent it is in India, but it's the idea of a self-made man. Ever hear of that idea? That you make yourself, and you're going to lift yourself up, and you're going to go to different seminars that show you how to be a better person and how to get the most out of life, and you're going to get it. And there's so many self-help books out there. You just pick up a self-help book, and you're going to read that. And the result is that society just tends to be as miserable as it was without them. This is the fact. So where's all this idea coming from? They're not referring to the Shastras. They're not referring to God or anything like that. That's one thing you'll notice in all these self-help schemes and ideas, is that you are going to help yourself become a better person, right? So what's that idea? So this idea, this is a basic idea, is coming from a class of philosophies known as existentialism. So different existentialist philosophies. It's the idea that that man has no essential nature. And that as you grow up, you kind of stumble on it. This is your nature, this is who I am, whatnot, and then I'm going to kind of like pursue that. If I want to be an astronaut, I'm going to be an astronaut someday. I'm going to go into the space and whatever. And the fact is, many people have those dreams, but hardly anyone actually makes it. Or, what is it? I remember when I was in school, there's a friend of mine, a girl. She wanted to be some sort of, military special forces specialist. But she was a girl. She just didn't have the kind of strength, ability, and so forth like that. So it's just another. Or sometimes they have these things that, somebody falls in love, some boy falls in love with the girl, but the girl gets married to somebody who's higher class, and he's always thinking about the girl, but he can't marry him. So things like this. It's just not in your hands. You don't have the particular qualities and so forth like that. So this existentialism sells everybody on the idea that you can become that if you want. It's so we reject that idea. We are against the self-help industry. If you want real help, you have to get a guru, right? You eventually have to get a guru. So we're telling people that you cannot help yourself, because if you're not liberated, only the bound, someone who's not liberated cannot help you. You have to get take shelter of a liberated soul, and that person, he can guide you on the course back to Godhead, to become free, to become fully happy. So we should declare boldly that all these schemes, all these ideas, they're bogus. They're not. They cannot benefit anybody. So the execution of bhakti begins with association of the devotees. So the says in the Bhāgavatam, Shushu Sho Sharadanasya Vāsudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Seva Vipra Punyatirtha Nishevana. That by associating with the saintly persons and by rendering service to them, these persons who are free from all vice, one gets some affinity for hearing the names of Vāsudeva. So this is where it begins. So we have so many people that come, we tell them to chant and everything like that, but do some service, help the devotees, do something practical, and then everything else will come from that. Another important point is that when we do this service, it needs to be done according to the Shastras. Shruti, Smriti, Purāṇādi, Pantaratra Vidim Vina, ISKCON-Delhi Harer Bhaktir Upataya Iva Kalpate. So, why is this? Just like we heard that Krishna, if you offer him a fruit, flower, water, he's satisfied. Well, that's coming from the Shastras. So the Shastras and Krishna are non-different. They actually, these come just like this Bhāgavatam. Bhāgavatam is directly Krishna. Okay. So, what is it? There are two Bhāgavatas. There's the person Bhāgavata and the book Bhāgavata. The book Bhāgavata is the instructions of the Lord, and the person Bhāgavata is one who lives his life in terms of the book Bhāgavata. So it's important to have both of these things. So it said in the Bhāgavatam by Narada Muni, 7th canto, chapter 11, text 7, he says, Dharma Mulam hi Bhagavan Sarva Veda Mayo Harihi. That the root, that the root of all Dharma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, just like in this verse of Aipum Samparo Dharma Yato Bhaktir Hokshaje, is that the point of Dharma is to realize one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, those who think that there's some other goal for the Shastras, that there's some other goal, they are misled and they cannot come to the right conclusion. Therefore Krishna says, Vadaishchazavar aham eva vedyaha, that by all the Vedas I am to be known. So Krishna in Gita indicates the goal of the Vedas. This is the scripture. So the verse in Bhagavatam continues, Smritam cha tad vidam rajan yena chatma prasidati. So that verse actually kind of parallels this verse that's quoted in the purport, Yatma suprasidati. So according to this verse, that the smritam cha, the smritam refers to the Shastras. It refers to memory, but it also refers to the Shastras like the Smritis and so forth. So we have different rules and regulations that are given in the Smritis for realizing the Supreme Lord. And because these regulations, they are coming from the Lord himself, they are actually the basis of our bhakti. So a very important point is that when we execute bhakti, it has to be according to the regulations of the scriptures and according to the acharyas and according to the guru. They all have to be three in the same line. Guru cannot say what is not in the Shastras, and he cannot depart from what the acharyas has said, and so forth. And the Shastra is the center of all. This is a very important point. Bhakti Vedanta. That is not just a flowery title. That means something. It is bhakti according to Vedanta. Therefore, if we are followers of Srila Prabhupada, our bhakti is according to the Shastras and the acharyas. It's according to Vedanta. And Vedanta According to Vedanta Sutra, third verse of Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat is very important. The Shastra is directly, it's the manifestation of the will of the Lord. It tells us what we want to do. Therefore, any bhakti, Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami actually addresses this question in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We see that there are people who are following other principles, like Buddhists, for example. They are very devoted to Buddha. They're following his principles and so forth. They're very zealous. But Rupa Goswami rejects this. Jiva Goswami rejects this, that they're following Buddha, but because Buddha, he preached something against the Shastras, it's not bhakti. And therefore, it doesn't count. It might look like bhakti, but it's not bhakti. So bhakti has to be also according to the scriptures. So, so this is a very important thing, especially for those of us who are in the lower stages. Now, somebody who's great as Srila Prabhupada comes along very rarely. Okay? So, there are three kinds of persons. Vaishnavas. Vaishnava is defined by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He describes a Vaishnava as one who's chanted the holy name of the Lord purely at least once. Okay? That's a Vaishnava. And one of the symptoms of a Vaishnava, no matter what stage he is on, whether he is in the lower, middle, or upper stages of being a Vaishnava, is that he has absolutely no interest in material life. That's one of the unique distinguishing characteristics of a Vaishnava. He's just not interested in material life. So Vaishnava is one who's chanted the holy name of the Lord purely once, not namabhas, but pure, but shuddhnam. Vaishnava Tara is someone who has chanted who chants the name of the Lord incessantly. So they're always, you can identify these people, they're always chanting the holy names of the Lord. They're not interested in anything material, they're always chanting. And then Vaishnava Tama, this is the topmost level of being a Vaishnava. These are the people when persons see such people, they begin chanting. So Srila Prabhupada, he was Vaishnava Tama. So when he came to the United States and started his preaching mission, at first it didn't look obvious that he was chanting, but when the people came and started associating with him, it's like they became on fire. The devotees were literally on fire. And if you talk to devotees who joined at that time in the early days and even the middle days, it was like one devotee described it to me that just so that Prabhupada would come and visit our center, we would do anything. He said, if we had to take a gun and give it to people and shoot them, and we were going to say, we're going to shoot you if you don't get this book, they were ready to do that. Because they just wanted Prabhupada to come. So that kind of personality, there's such a person, he's a resident of Goloka Vrindavan. Very rare. Rupa Goswami also says very rare. Pure devotional service is also very rare. It's one of its 6 attributes. So, in those days, because of Srila Prabhupada's presence, everyone was just so electrified. They were preaching. It's not that it was a material trick that, there were so many hippies there, and there was, some people explain it like that there were hippies and that there was a massive social unrest in America at the time and so forth. They attribute it. But no, actually, it's attributable. It's also explained according to Shastras. And we accept the version of the Shastras because all other explanations have their imperfections. Isn't it? There's no fault in the Shastras. There's no fault in the Shrutis. There's no fault in the Smritis. And for someone like Srila Prabhupada, who's a completely pure devotee, there's no fault in anything that what he says. Even if it looks like there's a fault, there's no fault. What is it? Brahma pramada viprilapsa karanapatava arsha vigyavakri nahi dosha eisabha that the words of persons who are great saintly persons, they're free from the 4 defects. It's Brahma, Pramada, Vipralipsa, Karnanapatava. So imperfect sense is Karnanapatava, Brahma, Pramada. Vipralipsa is cheating propensity. Okay, cheating propensity. I have this, I have so many defects, yet I'm saying that this is that, and so forth like that. Just like some people say, this is an important point, some people say that nobody's perfect, right? That's a common saying. Well, how do you know that nobody's perfect? It doesn't say that in the Shastras. And if you use your material senses, your blunt material senses, which are already imperfect, then how did you come to that point? So this is an example of imperfect knowledge. It's a faulty. No, there are people who are perfect, and if we're fortunate enough to meet them, then we immediately follow their instructions, do everything, serve them hand, foot, serve them with great humility. And if not, then we have the Shastras, we have the Parampara, and so forth like that, because the words of the Shastras, the words of great saintly persons, they are free from defect. Therefore, if we want our bhakti to be free of defect, then we must follow the Shastras. It must be according to the Shastras. Even great saintly persons, was it Baladeva Vibhushana comments in his commentary in Bhagavad Gita, that even if an avatar comes, he still follows the Shastras, like Krishna did. He showed that, he showed personally, he not only did wonderful things that nobody else could do, but he also showed perfectly how to follow the Shastras. Just like when he was Dvarka, he'd get up early in the morning, he'd bathe. It said that when he'd get up in the morning, that the rooster, a male hen, would crow. And as soon as he heard that, he got up. And his wives, who were sleeping with him and holding him, they'd curse that male hen. They would curse him. Oh, such a... But he'd get up, he'd take bath, he'd perform Agnihotra Yajna and so forth like that, all before the sun came up. All before the sunrise. So he showed personally by his own example how to follow, how to live according to the Vedic rules and regulations. So the purport, just to summarize everything here, is that in the purport and in the verse, is that in order to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it doesn't require great expense. One can offer leaf, fruit, flower, water according to one's means and so forth like that. And also, one needs to do this, such bhakti, knowledge and detachment automatically arise from such detachment. And also importantly, in order to execute this devotional service, it has to be done strictly according to the orders of the Lord, which are coming from the Shastras. The Shastras are considered the direct evidence of the Lord's desires on how we're supposed to execute devotional service. So we have a few minutes left, and I would like to open this up for questions. Yes, Prabhu.
You said we have to perform, we should be according to Shastra.
Yeah.
So, how we can easily apply those instructions? Because it is not easy. It is a great struggle to apply those Shastras practically.
Okay, so let me repeat the question in the microphone so everyone. Prabhuji's asking, I said in the lecture that one has to execute bhakti according to the instructions of the Shastra, but how can we do this easily? It's a very complicated thing. The Shastras are very complicated and so forth, right? That's...
difficult to apply also to resist your internal demons.
Yeah, because we have internal demons. Okay, so this is why the first point is that we have a spiritual master. Okay, so spiritual master, you can kind of think of it like a doctor. Prabhupada gives the example that Vedic literature is like a big apothecary or a big, pharmacy, okay, a chemist. You have so many medicines in there. Now, if you go take the wrong medicine, that can cause problems for you. So the doctor has to prescribe the medicine in that. But it's also not just doctor, but it's also one has to also get the training too, because it's sadhu shastra guru vakya. Okay, this is a very important point, is that especially when we're on the lower levels of devotional service, then, let me put it this way, we're all kind of like supporting each other. Just like, for example, one time Lord Brahma, he had a desire to have sex indulgence with a daughter of his named Vak. And so the Maruts, headed by Marichi and all the other gods, approached Brahma and said, "My dear Brahma," said, "no Brahma before you has ever done such a thing, and no Brahma after you has ever done such a thing. This is against the Vedic Shastras," and so forth like that. So when they saw that Lord Brahma was going to do it anyway, they said, "Oh my goodness, let us pray to the Supreme Lord." So, point here is that just because we have a guru doesn't mean we also cannot be aware of Shastra. So just like, for example, Bali Maharaj. So he, his Guru Shukracharya, he told him, this is Vishnu. He's going to take everything from you. And it wasn't that Shukracharya wasn't a qualified Brahmana. He was a qualified Brahmana. And in fact, he knew that this is Vishnu, and he knew that, who's Vishnu's position, but still. Therefore, what is it in this regard? Guru apta vyaliptasya karya karyam ajanataha. Then karya karyam ajanataha. What is it? Where does the rest of the verse go? Then I'm not remembering the rest of the verse. It's this is spoken by this is a verse spoken by Bhishma Dev when he was facing Parashuram in combat. So, utpata pratipanasya parityago vidiyate. That when a guru, so they're having, it's very interesting, very funny exchange. So, the result was that, who was it that Parashuram, he said, you have to marry this, who was the girl? It was Amba. Yeah, you have to marry Amba. And Bhishma Dev had taken a vow before Brahmacharya, so he couldn't do that. So Amba got Parashuram to come and fight. And and so the whole story is funny. So when Parashuram and Bhishma Dev met, they were praising each other. It was that Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, you're such a wonderful guru. You're such a exalted, intelligent, learned, powerful, and so forth." And Parashuram was saying, "Oh, you're such a wonderful disciple, blessed disciple, very capable," and so forth. And then finally they get to the real point. They cut to the chase. Shri Shri Radha Parta Sarati Lalita Vishaka Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gornatai Ki Jai. Then, so then finally they got to the point, and then Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Then Bhishma Dev says this. He says, one whose guru is, he's arrogant, does not know what is to be done, what is not to be done, and is on the wrong path, such a guru is fit to be given up. So here's one thing, and this is for those of you who have been in ISKCON for some time know this, is that we've had spiritual masters who've been good at some point, but have departed from the path. Okay? So a very important thing to understand is that that platform, which is very, very high, from which somebody never departs, that's a very, very high platform. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had many, many qualified disciples. But because of mistake, Gaudiya Math was destroyed. So similarly, we're not, how should I say this? We're not incapable of making that kind of mistake as either individuals or as a society. So therefore, it's very important that we also be trained up, not just following directions and orders from higher, but we also know what are the proper instructions. That's a very important point, because we help each other. Just like, you know, the Marichi and the Maruts, they went to Brahma, please don't do this. Sometimes that's necessary in our society. So anyway, that's the answer to the question, is that you, in the lower state, you know, you need to have a guru. He needs to tell you. At the same time, you also need to be trained in the Shastras and the words of the Acharyas, because it's Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, Aikya. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Aikya. So this Aikya means this, you harmonize. You can actually harmonize. Just like if you have like a single point, you can put many different lines through a single point, right? Geometry lesson. But now if you have another point, okay, then you can only draw one line through it. That is why the parampara, as we receive this through parampara, you know, we have to, it's not just guru, it's not just sadhu, it's not just shastra, because if you just rely on any one of those without the others, you can deviate. You can come to some conclusion that is unauthorized. So that's how you understand. It's just, what is it? Tatrada dana muniyo jnana vairagya yuktaya Pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhakti sruta grihitaya. This is one of the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, because Prabhupada, he actually takes the purport for this, and he actually repeats it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, another place. So bhakti sruta grihitaya, that you execute devotional service in terms of what, you know, the qualified sage, humble sage, he executes devotional service in what he has heard in terms of the Vedanta Shruti. So it's a thing. You just have to keep going on. You do your service, you serve your spiritual master, you read the Shastras, and gradually this knowledge will be revealed. You know, we're sadhakas, so it's not, we're not kripa-siddhas, we're not nitya-siddhas. Vast majority of us anyway, we're sadhana-siddhas, so sadhana takes a while. It's just kind of like the struggle. Just have to go on with it. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhuji.
In the purport itself, that Janayati Ashu Vairagyam. When you perform the Bhakti Yogi Prayojita, when you Vairagyam and Jnana are supposed to be Ashu. So how does one harmonize or compromise between the two, as to how Ashu is Ashu enough, how fast is fast enough, and how can we be patient? Ashu is quickly, so.
Yeah, Ashu is quickly. Well, these things happen. You know, part of the problem is that when we're in, especially in the lower stages, we have so many anarthas, and that's just another thing. One has to get beyond that stage of committing offenses, and that really, this really comes by the mercy of the spiritual master. You know, there's no. This is a very important point. Again, it goes back to my point about existentialism. People are trying to self-help themselves, but the fact is you can't self-help yourself. So therefore, the service of the sadhus and service of the spiritual master is perhaps especially in the lowest stages, is the most important thing. What is it? Shushu Shradhanasya Vāsudeva Kata Ruchi. So that Kata Ruchi comes only with serving those people who are free from vice. So if we're struggling, that means we have a lot of service to do. Quickly, what does quickly mean in terms of eternality? One lifetime, 2 lifetimes. So is that okay? Any further thoughts on that? Any realizations you want to share?
No, makes sense.
Okay.
What the points you
Anything else? All right. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.